and welcome to episode 53 of Striking Fury, the official podcast for your Empire Strikers. I am your host, Amanda, the Panda Philemon, and of course, I am joined today by the loud, the proud, the always stands out in a crowd, Christian Philly Philemon. What is going on?
What's going on to the Empire Armada? We are starting things off with a podcast on a Tuesday. And the way we're going to try to do things is podcasts on a Tuesday, but we're not going to just do something and post it. We're going to do it live. We're going to do it on the YouTubes, on the Facebooks, on the X's, formerly known as Twitter. So we're hoping that you all can join us. Obviously, this is going to be a surprise. I see a couple of y'all here in the chat already. Thank you and welcome. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to be giving you a pod, a live one, every single Tuesday, talking about our boys and their performance over the weekend. But obviously, there's you, there's me, there's one more that we are missing.
That makes three.
Would make three. Yes.
Of course, we are talking about the one, the only, the Dr. Jonathan Reimer. What is going on, buddy? It's so good to see you on a Tuesday.
Oh, man, it's fantastic to be. I'm just so ecstatic. The season has started. The anticipation, all of the buildup, the players coming, the players going, new coaches, everything, all the ideas. Now we finally get to see some actual soccer. Excited about this. I'm excited for a new season, excited for a new podcasting format, schedule, and the like. But pleasure to be here with you, my friends.
No doubt. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about this upcoming season and what has transpired in the offseason, because it no doubt has kind of ruffled some feathers, made little rumblings out there in the world of MASL. And we will definitely get into that a little bit. But before we get into that, we do want to talk about something that's going to be happening in January, something that Philly knows all too well about. Can you talk to everybody about what's happening and, just a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the United Coaches Convention is a group that's headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri, and every single year they do a convention nationwide. Last year rather, it was in Philadelphia. The year before that, it was in Kansas City. I had the opportunity to be there. And this year it's going to be in Anaheim. And the countdown to it is underway. The 2024 United Soccer Coaches Convention in Anaheim isn't just an event, folks. It's an experience. And this year features some of the biggest names in soccer. Leonard Griffin from Cal Men's Soccer, Carla Thompson of the San Diego Wave FC, Randy Waldrum, head coach of the Nigerian women's national team. We're going to have founder and president of Angel City FC, Julie Ehrman. I'm a proud Indiana Hoosier, the head coach of the men's soccer team, which, by the way, is en route to hopefully getting their 9th NCAA College Cup. They're going to be there. And look, obviously, MASL will be there as well. We'll talk about that in just a second, but you'll find us on Media Row, the Striking Fury faction. You got Angel City Chicks, Defenders of the Bank. So check that out. It's going to be awesome. Engage in immersive field sessions that cover contemporary topics from transition tactics and modern play to the evolution of goalkeeper training. The business of soccer thrives within our exhibit hall, showcasing hundreds of international brands and the opportunity to network with industry leaders. And if you act soon, up until December the 12th, there is a special offer. Use the promo code, which we will give you at the tail end of this podcast, and you can participate in this convention as well for the mere price of $425. Prices are going to rise after December 13th. Look, I'm not just saying this to pay the bills. In a way, I kind of am. But at the end of the day, I really did enjoy the experience in Kansas City. A lot of really great topics. And if you're sort of on the fence and you want to know more information, there's a free app, United Soccer Coaches Convention. You can see all the different classes that are going to take place. This is going to be held in January in Anaheim, and the app's going to tell you all the classes, all the presenters that are going to be there, and MASL is going to be featured in there as well, and not just MASL, but the Strikers and the Soccers.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to have a lot of fun action, and it's going to be over the course of, I think it's about 5 days of things that are going to be going on. But what I am most looking forward to is something that I want the Dr. Jonathan Reimer to kind of highlight, because you guys are going to be a big part of this. Can you tell everybody what's going to be happening at this convention?
Well, I think most everybody who watches this show by now is aware of the fact that the Empire Strikers will be taking on the San Diego Sockers. This is a big deal, folks. This is a big deal. It's going to be a great game, big exhibition, big showcase for the league, for the players, for the two franchises involved, certainly as well too, to hopefully bear the burden and the responsibility of representing the league. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for it. But, we got to get into a little bit about, something that Philly would like to bring up right now.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, we told you about it a little bit, but we didn't exactly tell you when it's going to be. Starting checking in January, Tuesday, January 9th, and it's going to be going till Sunday, January 14th. The game itself is going to be at the Anaheim Convention Center, and that'll be on Saturday, January the 13th. I believe it's going to be in the afternoon. We'll get you some more information on that later. But if you can't be there and you're somewhere else, be it Milwaukee, be it Utica, and much love to all of you from all those places joining us, you'll be able to watch it on Twitch. MASL will be featuring it. And supposedly it's going to be a half Sockers, half Strikers broadcast. So that'll put two very friendly parties together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you check it out. We'll continue to give you more updates in regards to this convention every single week. But until then, let's get into some Empire Strikers.
Yeah,
hold
sure.
the phone. Hold the phone. Have we started the betting yet on what quarter Craig attempts to strangle you with the microphone cord? That's really what I want to know.
6 minutes into the first.
Oh my God.
I love the Anaheim Convention Center. So many memories. What an iconic place, man. That's where the autograph signing session for the All-Star game 20 years ago was held. I mean, it's an iconic venue for sports in Southern California. I mean, people don't think of Anaheim as being an iconic place, but when you think about the history of so many things that have taken place there in downtown Anaheim at that convention center, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I just wanted to chime in my 2 cents on the soccer convention and so many peeps that we know that are coming in from out of town as well too. I can't wait for it.
And big shout out joining us in the chat. And thank you. We'd love for y'all to participate. Obviously, we didn't advertise this. So the fact that somebody's here is pretty darn cool. And it's not just somebody.
Oh, it's a big
somebody. Our former assistant coach, Kevin Curtin, who is now the head coach of Austin Emerald in the MLIS. He has former Empire Strikers player Kyler Moore on the team as well, who is also part owner. And make sure you check out Austin Emerald. They're up and coming. I've seen the marketing. I've seen everything that they're doing down there. And indoor soccer, hitting Austin, keeping that city as weird as possible. And we love it. Kevin, much love to you. We miss you here in the IE. And good luck to you in this upcoming season.
Yeah, go have some Salt Lick for us, right? Isn't that the famous
Salt
barbecue
Lick.
place?
Such a great spot.
Yeah.
So good. That would be a great trip to make, just to see some good friends, some good soccer, and to eat some good food, no doubt. But unfortunately, we need to move on from that. We need to talk about this team that you guys have seen the past 2 games. And it looks a little different. We did have a podcast recently where we kind of highlighted a little bit about that, but let's go into some of the transactions that have occurred recently. Which one of you would like to start? Reimer.
I think, look, there's one name the conversation has to start with, right? And it starts with, I think, a massive thank you from everyone involved in the once Ontario Fury and the now Empire Strikers to one Frank Tayu, the King, who represented this organization, this corner of the world with such class and integrity and obviously skill set out there on the turf as well too. So it starts with a big, massive thank you for the contributions on the turf and in the community of one Frank Tayu, right? But obviously the Tayu trade is the big news that dropped since our last pod, and we got to dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, and honestly, with us as well, a lot of the changes that have occurred have been, surprising. And obviously, it even starts, we'll address Frank, but obviously it starts with the coaching change. I know we talked about this in the past, but obviously we wanted to address it again. Head coach Jimmy Norberg moves from behind the rafters to the front office. He will no longer serve as the head coach of the Empire Strikers. If you recall, in 2021, he was the MASL Coach of the Year, taking the Empire Strikers, or the Ontario Fury then, within seconds to a Ron Newman Cup final. Slipped through the hands, but he's now going to be the general manager of the team, doing things on the business end. Our coaches right now, 2 former and legendary San Diego Sockers, and that of head coach Paul Wright and Paul Dougherty. I've got their cards right here. That is a Paul Wright. The light here is covering it. And then I got Paul Dougherty right here. Yay! Our
It
coaches
looks
are
like
on
you're
soccer cards. That's a lot of fun. So they're obviously going to be changing the dynamic of this entire organization from the on-field perspective. And well, we got two legends who have not only been successful on the turf, but successful off of it as well with their coaching accolades off the turf. So we're very lucky and fortunate to have both Pauls at the helm of this team.
It looks like you're missing a signature on one of those cards, buddy. I mean, I
Yeah,
think I
well, I
might
just
know a
got the
guy.
Paul Dougherty card earlier today. I found it on eBay. Believe it or not, the Burbank Trading Card Store right down the road and across the street from where you and I get our haircuts, they have a plethora of old trading cards from the Missile days. So you and I got to go in there and start collecting some tattoos, some preckies, some Steve Jungles. We got some work to do on that front.
Yeah, I might need to go there tomorrow. I have my first day off in a while. I might need to go pay our friend a visit there. But that's cool. I'm going to have to check out the card shop across the street. I didn't know they had such a plethora of old school indoor soccer cards. That's awesome. Would love to see that game get escalated a little bit. People bringing the old cards out, maybe new ones coming out that we can move around a little bit would be pretty cool. But sorry, I didn't know we were going back in time
I
to
know. I didn't
discuss
either. Apparently
previous
he's
things that we had talked about on previous shows. Silly me for following the rundown. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
No,
No,
you're fine. He took a left turn at Albuquerque on all of us
Look,
on that one.
I'm not Bugs Bunny here. I just got the Paul Dougherty card, and I really wanted to show it off. So leave me alone. I got to give praise to the Pauls.
Oh, I am so glad
No,
we have
I'm all
notes
for it.
this
I'm all
pod that
for it.
know that you
Yeah.
don't follow. But
You
either
know, in the
way,
future, you do have the
let's-
option to include those things in the rundown
You
so
can
that
put them in
your
the notes.
pod
As I once
partners
said to
know about them.
a podcast good friend of mine, J.R. Liebert the Scarf, what do I need notes for? I know what I'm going to say.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Anyways, this is why I'm here to keep this on the rails. We talked about Frank moving on from us and how huge loss, huge shoes to fill, and it was only going to take two people to do that in the likes of Stefan Mijatovic and Quentin Swift. So, can you talk to me a little bit about those two guys? That's you.
Oh, it's me. Well,
I mean,
look.
I think
Well, we are trying a new format. Doctor, by all means, the doctor is in the house. Go for it.
I think it starts with the decision to move Frank, right? And I think we see this throughout the entire sporting landscape where you have an absolute legend superstar, crosses over 30, is in the middle of that contract that they signed at their peak years. And teams start to think, hey, maybe I could get something now for this as opposed to letting this contract play out. And it's a decision that every sport, every league across the globe has this same issue. And in most cases, the team with said player eventually decides we're going to trade said player and try and get some stuff back and hit a rebuild whenever working with said player doesn't yield championship results. And obviously the last 2 years were not championship caliber performances from the franchise. And so big changes had to be made. And an opportunity to go out and get two proven talent players in the league, in both Swift and Mijatovic, I mean, ultimately became a move the Strikers just couldn't refuse given how much they had in talent already and how many pieces they needed to bring in. There had to be some trades, and 2-for-1s out there are a great way to make additions. And I think it's smart business at the end of the day by the club, but it is a huge piece to miss. And Philly, your thoughts on the incoming talent?
I mean, real quick. I mean, you're giving up the Golden Boot winner of the MASL last season, a 4-time league MVP, one of the most lethal scorers in the history of indoor soccer. And I for one, I love Frank as a human being. Him and I have a friendship off of this. And I mean, I love the guy. I mean, I loved hanging out with him, loved chatting with him. We would talk about all kinds of different things from sports to music. I'm going to miss Frank tremendously. So I wish him all the best in Utica. And hopefully the King remembers how cold it is in the East Coast, having spent so much time in Mexico and California. He obviously played his Division I collegiate soccer at West Virginia alongside his brother Uzi. And Frank, if you're hearing this, I love you, buddy. I miss you. As far as the players that we bring in, when I realized that, I think we might have struck some gold on this, was seeing the comments by the Utica City fans upset that Mijatovic and Swift were being traded to go on the opposite side of the coast. Mijatovic spent, a cup of coffee, if that, a shot of espresso, if you will, at Utica City. And for him to have developed that much love within the fans, that speaks volumes. And Quentin Swift, obviously being from the East Coast, playing his collegiate ball at University of Hartford, he's another player that was very solid for Utica City. So we're lucky to have them on our team. Steph adds this big bodied presence. And what's the heck is that? Oh, got it. Sorry. Steph obviously adds a big body and some defensive prowess in there with the ability to score and take out defenders. And Swift just a solid all around player. And obviously it's still early in the season. I could tell you this: Steph led our team in shots in that game against Chihuahua. More on that later, but we're definitely lucky to have the both of them on the team.
I know the real reason you were disappointed in Steph coming over. There is now someone who challenges you within the same hairstyle. And I know that can't sit well with you, Philly.
Yeah, he has mentioned that several times when we were watching them warm up at the practice about his hair game being so strong. So no doubt, but we do need to talk about the fact that we did need a big veteran presence on our back line. We did lose some pretty big pieces, I think, in the offseason. Do you think he's going to be able to fill those shoes?
I mean, at this point, it's too premature to say. Like, there's so many key pieces that were shifted around. I mean, Robert Palmer obviously going back to Kansas City, and that sort of makes sense. He'd spent time with the Comets. He did his collegiate experience at Park University. Shout out Eric Bergrud. And so it makes sense that he would want to go back and be close to his family. But you're losing an MASL MVP. You're losing a Defender of the Year. So, I mean, the rebuilding is going to be challenging within its own right. But, we have players now that want to be here, players that still want to succeed. And that ultimately is what we all need here. I mean, having missed out on the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, like you said, Doc, changes needed to be made. And, well, not to say that anybody was a little long in the tooth as far as like too old, but obviously we're bringing in a lot of younger talent. And so we'll see how that develops. But I'm pretty confident as this season matures and these guys all get to know each other and build the chemistry, I think we're going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, let's talk a little. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just, I think Mijatovic is going to be a massive piece defensively. And I think that's obviously there were 2 big defensive departures, but you bring him in and, Gerardo is another player that plays some phenomenal defensive work out there as well, too. And I don't think there's a lot of light shed on his signing as well as being one of those pieces that's going to make the defense a bit more stalwart once they get a chance to get their legs under them. But you're right, Panda. There were definitely more signings and more action aside from the Taiyu trade.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talk about losing Frank, so let's talk about someone that's going to have to step up and kind of take his role over, and it's going to be that of Lucas Roque, who had such a stellar season last year. He was 3rd in scoring. He had 30 goals, 17 assists. What do we think about him stepping into that role?
What I like about Roque is you got some veteran leadership that has been at the top of the MASL. Obviously, him winning several titles with the Baltimore Blast. A calming presence in the midfield, and that's important, especially with a team of up-and-coming players, youngsters, and, well, for that matter, people that have never played in the MASL. I mean, you alluded to it. Roque, 3rd in points with 47. As far as goals, he was 4th with 30. But where I feel that Roque is going to be a huge addition is in his capability to make his teammates better and help that way as well. I mean, he had 17 assists, falling within the top 10 statistically in the MASL, and that's something that we're going to need for him to be able to score goals and facilitate for the scoring of others. I think that's going to be huge.
If you look across the global world of soccer football, teams that win championships have superstar strikers. There is a superstar forward on almost every single amazing team out there. And Roque came in to be the superstar for this team. It's a big shoes to fill. It's a lot to put on the man, but he's earned it. And now he gets to go prove it for a new team. And I could not be more excited. Cannot wait to watch him get going. He is a baller, and I'm excited that he's balling out for us.
Yeah, he even just watching the game as a fan, even well before we started a podcast or even got involved in broadcasting, he was a player I enjoyed thoroughly for his ability to control the ball, be a calming presence in the midfield, and obviously he can score some phenomenal goals. I mean, he came back from having torn up his knee a couple of years ago, and what's wild is last season, over the course of the entire history of the MASL, was arguably one of, if not his most productive offensively. So we're stupid lucky to have Lucas Roque on this team.
Yep, and those other defenses are Roque, Unlucky.
Oh
Okay.
no, save that for the
Oh
broadcast.
boy, yeah. Put that one in your pocket for later. Now, let's move on to another loss. You alluded to it already, but we just want to talk about what we got for him, and that's in that of Robert Palmer. We did receive some cash. So, what do you think we're going to do with that?
Pay some bills.
Look,
I mean, it sucks
Philly
to see him
Philly
go.
already talked about it. In the
Yeah.
case of Berto, his life was transitioning to a different location. He was moving out of the IE and he was heading back to take a position at Park University. So him not playing for the Strikers and him playing for the Comets was really, I think, Empire and this front office taking care of one of their own.
Yeah, I mean, it was
He
no
got
surprise.
yeah, he
Yeah.
got that opportunity to go work at the university that he went to school at and that he loves. And I mean, Philly, if the Hoosiers came calling tomorrow, we know where your heart lies, right? And I feel like the same thing goes for Berto as well, too, right? I mean, it was an offer he couldn't refuse.
No, I get it. He was godfathered. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. Like so, he's home. He's happy. It blows my mind that a young man from Kingston, Jamaica, would enjoy the the Midwest and the brutal winters
So
of
cold.
Kansas City.
So cold.
So cold. One thing we didn't mention, obviously, haven't talked about Roque, was the trade that brought Roque over. We gave up Jesus Pacheco, Sweet Pea himself, and Sweet Pea is another one of those players that year after year after year would continue to improve. And last season was a breakout year. He featured for the U.S. national team as well, doing some things. And obviously, we loved Sweet Pea here. And he was a really big part of our last 3 years. And we wish him all the best. Sweet Pea, part of the transaction, bringing Lucas Roque to Empire.
Yeah, he had 14 goals last year. I mean, well into double digits, I think. A huge part of the culture, around the entire Empire team last year. To see Sweet Pea hit the road is a bummer. It's going to be another piece that's going to be, hard to replace. But you got to give up something to get something. And I think in Roque, what we have is an absolutely insane piece. Couldn't be happier about that.
Yeah, no doubt. We've lost some players that we didn't want to see go, but we've definitely got some new ones that we need to rally around and support and just be happy that they're here. And I think they're all motivated and definitely want to help us to make playoffs and hopefully win a championship. Now we do have some players on this team that are pretty new, I would say, to the indoor game, and those were picked up at the combine. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the new picks that are part of this roster that a lot of people may not know?
Go for it, Doc.
Yeah, so we got Ebel Gamino, who was our third round pick, and Riley Uli, who was our second round pick, that have both, through the course of tryouts and their subsequent time with the team, made the roster for the start of the season. Typically, MASL Combine draft picks have a lot to prove in a very short amount of time in order to get their way onto the senior squad. And the fact that we got two of them, remember, these are picks that in some cases we traded up to get picks to get access to these players. So the fact that we gave up something in that round in order to get these picks, and those picks actually then coming around to be someone who actually signed, right? Because obviously Nestor Hernandez was traded for one of these two picks. So I think that speaks volumes to the talent that they scouted, saw, and hopefully we get to see come to fruition throughout the course of this season.
And so many people were very big on Riley Uri. Our good buddy Matt Huber, who was at the combine, was messaging us via the social, saying this kid is really good, really fast. And I know head coach Paul Wright saw a lot in him. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think he might have even started that first game against Chihuahua. But either way, there's a big ceiling for this kid coming in. There's a lot of happy people within the organization, and we're going to see some really good things out of him as well. So I would say for the most part, we were really successful with our draft picks. We had another one, unfortunately, who couldn't become part of the team. I believe it got chalked back again to a P1 visa issue, which I really hope we finally resolve. There's just so many talented players all across the world that would benefit from being in our league. And obviously for us, our league would benefit from them being in here as well. So can't wait for this P1 visa stuff to get changed. I know the powers that be are certainly working really hard on it, especially here in Empire. So big shout out to our managing partner, Jeff Burham, and our other general manager, Oliver King, trying to get things done. We hope there's going to be some kind of resolution at some point.
I am a little disappointed. I was looking forward, Philly, this year to hearing you try to pronounce Ikbolivodzitora. That would have been a really fun one to try and see how many times we could say that 10 times fast as the ball moves around. But you dodged that bullet, my friend.
I feel like he would have had a nickname real fast with you guys.
Iggy.
Iggy, yes,
IQ,
exactly.
IQ. There you go, IQ.
Yeah,
That's
there we
right.
go.
Now another player I think did we talk about in the last pod? I'm not sure. I know I did an interview with him, so I feel like we've talked about him a lot. But if we didn't, that was of course Bryce Watson, who you got to know really well because of the Kings Cup. He was the breakout player of that tournament, and yeah, he's part of this squad and already trying to make an impact. What are your thoughts on his performance so far?
Some of the things we saw from him in Kings Cup were frankly exactly what we saw from him in those games south of the border in Mexico. He's a tenacious defender. He's fierce. He gets up in people's faces. He is not going to back down from any player from any moment. There are some great outdoor skills there. I think they're still trying to find their way into the small pitch in order for him to be a little bit more involved offensively, but defensively getting involved in every single scrap. And that's exactly what we saw from him throughout the course of Kings Cup. That led us to nominate him as Young Player of the Tournament, to which he earned the opportunity for this tryout, something we had discussed on the previous podcast. And now to see that tryout come all the way through to a signing and him putting in minutes for the senior squad, wearing that Strikers jersey south of the border, that's a pretty cool thing to know that we were involved in, helping discover that talent and bring it up. And then to actually see him out there putting in the work. It's going to take some time on the training pitch before I think he becomes the kind of effective piece that's going to be knocking down the back of the net and, hopefully winning us some steals and making some big moves there against key players. But I think we're starting to see flashes there of the player he can become.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he came highly regarded going into college. I mean, he did his Big West Division I soccer at Cal State Fullerton, which is one of the premier soccer schools in the Big West. So the kid's got game. You've seen him all around Venice Beach playing in pickup games. Frank knew him real well. Frank spoke very highly of him. So definitely looking forward to seeing this young man transition from being an outdoor player to an indoor player. And look, we know that's not an overnight change. It's a complete shift in terms of how you view the game, how you play the game. Obviously, we're talking like high speed, like quick bursts of speed versus just, the slower passing and hang out on one side of the pitch type deal. So he's going to feature for us and he's going to be an important piece. I do want to highlight a couple of other players that are on this team that are new, and also just really quickly want to talk about some of the players that returned before we get into the game. So I will just take this real quick on the run. Without a keeper, obviously with Chris Toth going to Tacoma, with Clayson DeLima not being part of the team, again, due to P1 visa issues. We do return Brian Orozco. Brian Orozco was our third-string keeper last season, but Brian Orozco isn't what I would call a third-string keeper. He's a young man that did his U17 at one of the biggest clubs in Guatemala, Comunicaciones, represented them on the national level senior men's team for futsal. Obviously played collegiately here in Southern California. He comes back. Yes. Oh, hello. Sorry. And then we bring in our starting keeper, Brandon Gomez, who so many people have said so many good things about him. People that I don't even know would DM the Striking Fury account and go, you guys have a really good keeper. Most recently, he featured in the NISA, which is a couple levels below MLS and USL. And from what I've heard, he's a monster keeper, very agile, very quick, fast reflexes and good with his feet. And despite the fact that, look, our weekend in Mexico wasn't as successful as one could view, I would say he had a stellar time in goal. So he's our starting keeper for the foreseeable future.
Well, we have a third keeper, of course, in Solario as well, too, who featured in the second game down in Mexico. Dual citizenship, so he's got U.S. and Mexican citizenship, which certainly helps out, especially in those games south of the border. I thought he played admirably in the latter stages of the game versus Monterrey, I believe, when he came in. So a couple keepers on the list. I still haven't seen Garrett Bloom yet, our Brazilian USA, signing early in the season. Hopefully we get to see him debut, and we know he's nursing a knock coming back from that. So hopefully we get a chance to see him debut as well too. So there's still, some things, some pieces to this roster that really haven't had a chance to show up yet. And of course, obviously there hasn't been a lot of time to gel, as we saw, and perhaps we should dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Time to, pour off the Band-Aid, pull off the Band-Aid,
Pour it off.
pour it off. Yeah. You're a nurse. I know I didn't say the right thing. I'm sorry.
Philly's
Pull
I
it
think Philly
off.
wanted to pour one out, but pull off the Band-Aid,
Philly's
and it
had
just got stuck.
margaritas. It's Taco Tuesday. He's doing some things. So
Well, look, real quick, even before we do that, just real quick, sorry. Look, we brought in Howard Miller Jr., fantastic with the USA game. He was fantastic over the weekend. Mo Guy returns. Justin Stinson returns. We bring back Abdul Mansouré, and Abdul Mansouré was a shining star in our game against Monterrey. Adam James is back. Alan Perez is back. Hugo Magana Jr. is back. We bring in Walter Diaz. He was a trialist, tried out during the combine for here at Empire. He was successful. Randy Martinez, who we've talked about, tried out for us, played for the Team USA. He's on the team. Anthony Wright, who did some of his had a professional tenure out in England at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, we bring back the captain, Israel Cisse. This man's been here longer than all of us, longer than any. Geez, Cisse's been here through everything. And also, just real quick, Andy Nunez, who lit up the back of the nets for the Empire Jets. He comes through. And the one player that I'm also really excited to see, folks, Claude Dielna, who represented played at a lot of really high levels, man. Played in Liga 1, the highest level in France. Played over in Romania. Played for the Portland Timbers and the New England Revolution in MLS. Featured in the TST tournament. And so many players that I spoke to said this kid is dynamite. He is going to be a huge piece in that back line, helping the likes of Cisse and Mijatovic do what they can to protect Gomez. So just wanted to talk about those players really quick. And yeah, that's our roster.
real quick, meaning the last 10 minutes.
Well, look, I mean, we had to address the players. You didn't mention some
I
of
didn't
these
know
guys.
in the notes it didn't say complete roster introduction. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyways,
if it was in the rundown,
if it was in the notes, maybe we'd all be able to contribute to it. But unfortunately, we can't pick Philly's brain. So
I don't need notes. I know what I'm going to say.
well, I can tell you what you're going to say later. And it's probably going to be like, I'm sorry, but we're going to move on from that. We're going to talk about why we're here.
Start
and
a call
that's
with your wife, they say.
And that's games. We're here about games. We're here to play games. We're here to recap games. We're here to talk about games. And that is exactly what happened this past weekend. We finally, in what seemed like, I don't know, it felt like all entire year since we had our last game, which was what, back in
I thought you meant since
April?
the start of the pod. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. No, good call.
No,
You're right.
People's got jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Just trying to be thorough, y'all.
That too. Anyways, let's
good
talk
man.
about this. Let's
Thorough.
get into it. Let's talk about game one that happened down in probably the hardest place to play. I mean, why not kick it off with a boom? And that's exactly what we did. And boy, I think the whole trip really just started out kind of rough for these guys. I mean, they didn't leave till midnight after Thanksgiving. So, like midnight on Friday, the same day that they had a game, unfortunately. So, that trip probably did not set them up for the greatest of success, in my opinion. What are your thoughts going into this game before we even get into it?
The joys and beauties of traveling in Mexico.
Yes.
Here in the United States, we get used to things like flights not being canceled, flights actually leaving within a reasonable time of them being scheduled. Despite the occasional mishap, it is certainly not as prolifically disorganized as it can be south of the border, right? So flights get canceled all the time. You end up in the wrong city. You got, and so the fact that this all happened on Thanksgiving Day, of course, and then the following day obviously made for this to be, it was difficult. It was difficult for the team to be traveling on Thanksgiving anyway. And then you get flight cancellations, delays. They end up pulling a red eye. They're on a plane from midnight to 5 a.m. You get into Chihuahua, you get to the hotel. It was set up for failure from the beginning. I mean, there's so many things about this trip was, if we got any kind of a result out of it, it would have been a miracle. And really what took place that first night in Chihuahua was exactly what we expected. A well-rested, well-conditioned Chihuahua team that's been playing all offseason at the tournament level and at the cash tournament level showed up and looked like the reigning champions. We had a great first quarter, I thought. I think we came out of that first quarter 2-1. We scored the first goal of the game. We were out on the front foot. Howard Miller Jr. scores a banger. Things look good. And then the wheels came off, and the lack of a defensive shape and structure that just hasn't had a chance to be honed in yet, really. And and some tired legs and some exhausted players it was over pretty quick after that.
Yeah, we talk about traveling during Thanksgiving and it being difficult and traveling to Mexico, which is one of the huge reasons why we didn't make it down ourselves to do what we normally would call an English broadcast. So we did have, though, the privilege to be able to do kind of a watch along. So thank you to everybody out there who was able to join us on the live feeds while we talked about the game and talked about the players and talked about what was going on live while the game was going on. I know it was not a perfect scenario, but it was definitely something that we felt we really wanted to try to do at least because I know everybody loves when we go down to Mexico and we're able to give them that English broadcast. But unfortunately, that just did not happen, and that was just one of the other things that kind of played into this trip that did not turn out the way that we all wanted to, unfortunately. And I think I said it on the live stream was the way it started going into the half, I knew that Chihuahua was such a good team. They were going to adjust to exactly how we were playing. And that's exactly what they did. And the problem was we did not adjust to their adjustments at all. And I think it just killed us in the end.
I mean, it took 75 seconds for us to score. And, well, at the end of the first quarter, I mean, we're looking at 5 shots to their 12. Things started kind of falling off of the rails within the second quarter to a certain extent, mainly offensively, because we didn't really have any opportunities. We had 1 shot on goal the entire time. That's when Chihuahua started coming in. And then you have the likes of, Kike Cañas and newcomer to the team, Javier Gallegos, getting on the board. But going into the half, I wouldn't say it was the worst performance. I was actually pleasantly surprised with how the strikers came out and battled. The advantage of having a young, quick team with a lot of endurance is playing in a smaller dimension arena like Corner Sport Arena certainly boded well for them. And the fact that there was not that much tape on them also worked in our favor. So, I mean, with this team right now, and I'm going to say this time and time again, you really have to view their performance quarter by quarter and look at it in segments. To think that they would go down to Corner Sports Arena and dominate the defending champions, it wouldn't have happened. If we would have brought in the Team USA players, basically an MASL All-Star team, that team even that featured in Toyota Arena in September in that exhibition match against Mexico, look, it took a lot of talent just to get by Mexico. And look, let's not kid ourselves. Mexico basically was the Chihuahua team. So the fact that they go into the locker room down 2-1, I think that's a big victory over the course of the first 30 minutes of this game and of this new team's existence.
Yeah, it would be nice to see what a fully rested squad, especially one that's had, at least another month or so to kick the ball around together and get to know each other. And we're going to get an opportunity for sure to see this team go down to Chihuahua with a better squad later in the year. And hopefully by then we've been able to build up enough fortitude to take this one out. A couple things about the latter stages of this game. I wasn't crazy with our 6th attacker. I think we ended up giving up goals and didn't really look all that giving up 2 goals. Didn't really look all that effective as a 6th attacker. We weren't cycling the ball well. The ball movement just needs a little bit more familiarity. These guys need to play with one another, know how they like to receive it, where they like to move in order to just speed up those little moments in the game. And you could just see that those things were just causing everything to be a bit slower and build up, a little bit more janky as far as how it moved around. And a team as good as Chihuahua is going to exploit that. And they certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, so in my assessment, in my head, I think I even told you this, to lose by 7 or less, I would say that would have been a successful outing. Because I mean, if you go back to last season, granted, the strikers were operating off of the highs of beating the Monterrey Flash for the first time, but obviously dealing with Adam James having appendicitis. Strikers, I mean, we got annihilated by more than 8 in that first game against Chihuahua. So, like, the fact that the boys kept it under 7, again, I think of it as a victory. I'll say it this time, and I'll say it again at the end of Monterrey. That recap. You have a team that is new with players that half of them have played in this league, half of them have never even been in this league or played indoor soccer, going up against the reigning defending Ron Newman Cup champions, a team that is stellar and will arguably contend not only in the Western Conference, but potentially repeat for their title as well. The fact that they were able to hang with them speaks volumes. And if anything, it would teach these kids a very valuable lesson. And that's, you're going in trial by fire against the best team in this league. you went out there and did your thing and actually kept up with them. That should be a confidence booster, because if you could do it against the best, you could probably do it fairly well against the rest. So between Chihuahua and Monterrey, you have two of the three, if not four, two of the top four teams in this league, period.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch. It was always going to be a tough roadie to start out the year. For some of these kids, this is their first time ever going to Mexico, right? So I mean, you have to deal with the whole culture shock, the travel, all of this. They turn around. You get 1 day off to kind of collect yourself in Chihuahua, find yourself to Monterrey, which is another massive elevation change from here in the IE and in the Empire, where we're pretty close to sea level. And you head to Mexico, some of these places, Monterrey is way, way high up in altitude, right? I mean, we're talking, I think it's higher up than Denver is, right? So, I mean, there's a big altitude change, time zone change. I mean, all that travel messes with your body. And it's hard to try and pick up 24 hours later and play a game at a brand new arena that no one's ever played in before against a very, very tough Monterrey team.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. I think we have some pros, we have some cons. Pros in that of Brandon Gomez. I think he had a phenomenal performance as a keeper in goal. He had such good saves and definitely kept the score line a lot lower than it could have been. Also, coming out and attacking early, I think that was great. I think we just need to do that a lot more. But we definitely have some things to work on. Like we said, the sixth attacker needs work. And I think we just need to learn how to adjust to the adjustments that these teams are going to make to us, because that's definitely going to happen a lot. So time will tell. And I guess we were all hoping that maybe game 2 was going to be, a little bit better. Maybe we're going to learn something from game 1. And it was kind of, I guess, the same thing. It was kind of copy paste in a lot of ways. What do you think? Talk to me a little bit about game 2.
I
game
couldn't
two-
just. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
No. Ken, I think you should prompt who you want to speak first, because I think that'd be a lot easier for both Doctor and I to understand who's talking. So who do you want to talk first? I'll roll with that.
You go first. Reimer has led off a lot of these conversations, so why don't you start?
Fair enough. Look, Monterrey absolutely recalibrated and reloaded. Now, they're no longer playing in the fortress that is Arena Monterrey. They're in Arena Borregos, which they played in like several seasons in the past. A smaller, more intimate facility. And as far as the attendance is concerned, look, when there's that 2,000 people there, it obviously looks a lot better than when there's only 2,000 people in Arena Monterrey. That place is massive. When we got the opportunity to go there last season, look, we saw iconic photos of Freddie Mercury and Robert Plant. They've had NBA games. Like when that place has 5,000 people, 10,000 people, it still looks empty. So pretty cool to go down to this new facility. I'm bummed that we didn't get a chance to do that. But that being said, look, they brought in several players from Chihuahua and San Diego. You bought in the General, the keeper of the Chihuahua Savage on the team. I mean, he's in between the pipes. You bring in the
Big
likes
Rojo.
of Edgar Gonzalez, Torres, who obviously featured for Chihuahua. You bring in Rojo. You bring in Pollo. You bring in players that were formidable for San Diego. And you add them with the likes of, Walter Ayubi, somebody who was an absolute stud for his national team and for Tigres. Like, this team is going to get tougher and going to be another phenomenal opponent and a tough order for anybody to overcome in the East Coast. So we go a first 15 minutes scoreless down in Monterrey. I mean, you're looking at 6 shots by the Flash to the Strikers 3. So going into the second quarter, again, you're feeling pretty confident that they're withstanding the attack of the Flash. Brandon Gomez is doing his thing, protecting the back of the net. I can't say the Strikers were really threatening within the first 15 minutes, but, they certainly struck quick in the second, Doctor.
Yeah, Abdul Mansouré, out of nowhere, right? I mean, there's not really a good look at goal. It's not a great buildup. It's a scrap in the corner. He sticks a boot out at a stray ball and knocks it into the back of the net. Get it, Chelsea boy. Love it, right? I mean, great. Abdul Mansouré ended up being the entirety of our scoring on the night. We end up getting out of the first half. I think, once again, a very similar first half to the day before. But I have to say, I thought possession looked incredibly better between game 1 and game 2 in the first half. In the first half of game one, I thought we were really trying to scramble to get any kind of possession. By the time we get to game two, I felt like we just had a little bit more fluidity, a little bit more cohesion. There was a little bit more calm and preparation going into each attack. It was less frenetic, but then ironically, it takes a frenetic moment for us to get the only goal that really impacted the game from our perspective that we scored, because by the time we got around to scoring our second one, we had that disastrous third quarter before it.
You take out the third quarter, which obviously is a big piece of it, and you have much more of a competitive game. But the way the shots came through for the Flash, some of them off deflections. I mean, you had that one shot that deflected off Andy Nunez's foot. Nothing that Brandon could have done on there. A couple of other plays where the balls just came crashing off of the boards and there was nobody there to clear them. So obviously the defensive bad clearances were there, but Brandon still stood tall and made a couple of saves. I mean, a couple of unfortunate bounces here and there. And I mean, you know how indoor soccer works. It's a tough sport. No lead, even if it's 7-2, is safe. And obviously the strikers gave up a lot, and you can tell the air came out of the sails towards the end of the third quarter. At that point, the game was done, signed, sealed, and delivered. But where I really developed some more respect for this team was their tenacity, because honestly, the effort didn't die within the fourth quarter. You had some players that did play sluggishly. I will say that. I'm not going to call out any names, but you know who you are.
I'm happy
but
to.
Other players that went out there and still battled. And that's what I appreciate. I'm assuming that's the identity that Paul Wright and Paul Dougherty are going to want, is they're going to want these guys to run up and down the turf as much as they can and run these players outside of the arena. And at the very least, what I could say about the fourth quarter is they picked up steam. They ended up having more shots in that quarter than Monterrey did. Granted, Monterrey already had a big lead, but credit the strikers for not giving up in a game that was just put to bed at the end of the third quarter.
Look, I think we talked a lot about the travel. We talked a lot about the altitude, the climate, all those time changes and all that stuff. Those affect players' bodies. And I think it was very clear to see by the Monterrey game, there were a lot of players who were not at their typical level of movement and engagement in the game. And anyone who's watched these players play before can look and see that. It's clear as day. The part of the game that really stood out to me, especially in those latter stages, was the power play. We capitulated when we were down to 4 men. When we had the man advantage, we weren't able to find the back of the net. And to me, that kind of 4-point swing of us going 0 for 2 and them converting on a couple of theirs, that makes the scoreline look far more dramatic than the game could have been. And again, I think these are just things, these kind of special teams moments that the Pauls are going to work out as soon as they have enough time to work with these guys and get some ideas in place as to how they want to move the ball when they have the extra attacker. We saw this with the 6th attacker in the first game and more on the power play in the second game, but just didn't really look like we were threatening as much as a team should be in those moments. And certainly when, I thought there was some good movement in some of our early power play kills, but the decision-making out there kept having the refs reach to their pocket, and you can only defend so many blue cards in a game before the effort, the travel, the fatigue, all of it just catches up with you.
Yeah, no doubt. And, there were definitely a couple opportunities that we had really good looks on net, and we do have to put those away. I mean, those that I don't know what to call that at the end of the day. They just have to put those away. That's just
Finishing.
Finish it. And again, the power plays, like you said, there were several opportunities we had where it literally came down to seconds when we could have just killed it. I think there was one power play goal that happened as our player was running out of the penalty box. So it was not technically a power play goal, but he wasn't even in the field of play yet. So we got to kill those. We've got to capitalize on the times when we are on the power play as well. And yeah, I think we just need to learn how to command that second half a lot better. Now, we've talked about a lot with these two games. What are some pros and cons? I know we just talked a little bit about cons. Is there anybody that stood out early to you right now? Any front runners as far as players on our team? Anybody that surprised you or that you're really excited to see kind of develop and grow over the season?
Well, Brandon Gomez has got to be the one to that question. We had a huge question mark around the position of keeper going into this season. That question mark is erased. His shot stopping ability is absolutely there. I mentioned this when we did the walk along. When you're playing in those super small fields, So the watch along. I'm sorry, did I say walk along?
Where do we go?
I didn't know we walked, did we?
Were we there? I don't know.
Did we walk?
Just
How much
remember
did I have to drink?
the holidays are when Doc does all his working, right, for the whole year. I do a whole year's worth of work just
A lot
in
of
the
house
holidays,
calls.
so
I understand. I
so
understand.
forgive me if I'm a bit scatterbrained at the moment. It is in the heart of crazy season for me. But no, his shot stopping abilities are fantastic. The smaller pitches down there really test a goalkeeper's ability to distribute the ball, read a game, read a defense, know exactly where to place the ball. That's not there for him yet. I don't think that's a knock on his ability. That's just a cold statement about where he's at in his development at the moment. And I think we need to be honest that his shot stopping ability is above where we expected it to be. But the distribution is kind of right where we expected it to be, and something I truly hope grows throughout the course of the season. I think he knows that, and I think the coaches are working on it. But aside from that, he was an absolute stud. I thought Bryce, as far as getting stuck in challenges, I was really proud of what I saw with the guy with incredibly small amount of indoor experience getting out there and bodying up some people. And then Abdul, this is a player that I think a lot of people forgot about, and yet he bags both goals in the second game. His speed was on display a couple times. He had a great breakaway, probably another one of those chances that should have been finished though. But his scrappy ability to get involved in those defensive moments and to have the wherewithal to know that if he's going to knock a ball out of a challenge, to knock it goalward, to have it go in twice, good stuff. So that would be my top three.
Sorry, we have
a cat.
Two cats.
Yeah.
Never mind. I'm not even
gonna tell you what's happening behind us. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and we're gonna move on from this.
Yeah.
But
let's just say Stryker, the mascot, Harry, Huff, and Hagrid are coming for you.
All I'm gonna say is I thought Huff was the dominant one. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, let's move on. Family
house.
I mean, I have one player I really wanted to reference real quick. Look, I think Howard Miller Jr. is going to be a really solid player for us going forward. Obviously, he had his time within Baltimore and St. Louis for a cup of coffee, but I see a young man who's going to be locked in. There was one play in particular in the Monterrey game where Stinson absolutely spun his defender, and he did have Howard Miller wide open on the left side. Stinson opted to take the shot instead, but I think you get that ball into Howard Miller, and he too walks out of Mexico with 2 goals. So Howard Miller Jr., I think, is going to be a big piece for us. But you know what we're really going to need? When Stefan Mijatovic is leading our team in shots right now. Not all of his shots were on target. Justin Stinson disappeared within game 1. He only had 1 shot. He started picking up the steam in game 2, but a lot of the goals that we're going to end up scoring, losing the likes of Frank, losing the likes of Gabriel Costa, not having Pacheco, you're going to need Stinson to absolutely step up. I mean, Israel Cisse is the captain of this team, and rightfully so. He's been here forever, since day one. But if we're going to be successful this season, it all rides on the performance of Stinson. So we're hoping to see some big things out of this kid.
I think, to point out that Justin Stinson had a rough couple games is somewhat obvious. Anyone who watched that saw that there's a huge burden being placed on him this year. And what we saw in those first 2 games is not enough. And I think he would be the first to step right up and say that, he needs to have a bigger role in the games going forward. Quentin Swift as well, too. I thought there were some flashes from him where I saw some real cohesion with the team and some good movement, and some flashes where, he looked like he was still struggling to adapt to the team. That's another big piece, right? I mean, we've talked a lot about Mijatovic. Mijatovic is, I think, the little bit more of the proven quantity between the two, but you give up a player like Frank Tayu, and that puts a little bit of pressure on Swift as well, too. I think he welcomes that pressure. I think, he wants to step up and he wants to be the player that earns that moniker. And I think we saw a little bit of what could be there, but I'd like to see a little bit more going forward for sure. And I think we will.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positivity to come away from this game. If you look at the scoreline alone, I don't think that really paints the whole picture for really what I expect from this team. I think we have a lot of fantastic players. It's almost like we have an amazing piece of a puzzle that if we can get them all to come together and paint the same picture, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be fantastic. I really do. I have a lot of faith in this team, and I think it's just going to take time. And, testing them against teams down in Mexico, the best of the best, and teams that have been together for so long, I think that's just a really harsh judgment to make at this point. I think that we have a lot of things to look forward to. And I think one of those tests right now, I think the biggest test is going to be how do they respond going into this next match that we're going to have coming up, which is that of the St. Louis Ambush, because that is going to be a completely different type of gameplay, I think, that these guys are used to seeing. And I'm curious if anything changes or how they adjust after watching back tape and film from Mexico and going into this game, which I think is going to be a little bit more composed, a little slower, a little bit more spread out. What are your guys' thoughts about coming up to this next game?
Look, life is going to happen one way or another, and obviously how you respond to it is how you're going to be judged. So going down to Mexico, coming back 0-2, I'm not going to say I'm surprised. I'm really not. What I'm happy to say is when we went into practice that Wednesday, the team actually thought that they were going to win both games. And you know what? I absolutely appreciate that confidence, and hopefully that's confidence that's going to take place when they roll off to St. Louis. Now, we haven't been in St. Louis since the 2021 season when we were called the Ontario Fury. At that point, we had our way with the St. Louis Ambush. Now, this is a team that's got outstanding goalkeeping. Paulo Nascimento is one of the best keepers in the league. And they also have one of the premier goal scorers and an exciting young man. I love the kid. I got a chance to interview him on MASL Insider, William Esque. So that's another player, that the defense is going to have to contend with. But several people don't have the St. Louis Ambush in their arguments for being a playoff team. They had a really good outing against Milwaukee. And one would argue that Milwaukee, really got humbled by Kansas City. Obviously, this is too early in the season to make any kinds of judgments, but it'll really be a determining factor. It'll really show us what this team is made out of when they go to St. Louis, rebounding against two tough Mexico teams, having the ability to, like you said, reassess, watch some tape, and go in there and hopefully come out of the Midwest with a dub.
Panda, I think if you'd have asked me this question prior to the first couple games of the season, I probably would have circled this as one of those games you expect to get points out of, or at least one of those games you need to get points out of when you're looking at a table and saying, where are the points going to come from on this schedule, right? You have a team that is not predicted to be above the playoff line by a lot of the talking heads around the league. Those are the teams you kind of expect to get points. But this is not the last couple seasons Shrubs team. This team has gotten significantly better this offseason. And I think we've already seen a couple teams learn that lesson when they go up against them. And I know that the Wave were able to come away with that win, but that was by the skin of their teeth. And the Wave are a team that many people have picked to come out of the East, if not at least be one of the best teams in the East, right? So I think a few weeks ago, I might have said, we should destroy this Ambush team. But now I'm starting to think that we might have criminally undervalued this Ambush team, and it's going to be a much more difficult game than anticipated. As far as what the team does to respond to what happened in Mexico, I really think you just have to point out that the fundamentals haven't been completely drilled of whatever's Paul's ideas are yet. And so we're going to have to wait and just give a chance to make sure that those ideas are implemented and give it a bit of a sample size. But the sample size in Mexico, given the factors around it, given the personnel that we still are waiting to get integrated into the team, it's just too soon to really be reactionary. Right now, you just got to be all about the plan and the idea that he wants to implement, and they're going to have to ride that for 5 or 6 games. I don't think it would be a good look if they go back to the training room and already want to start tearing up ideas at this point.
Yeah, far too premature. Real quick, St. Louis, I forgot going down their roster. Corey Adamson is back in MASL. He obviously had his time period coaching last season, so he's back. A kid that I really was fond of calling his first goal, Skylar Funk from the Florida Tropics. He's now on the team. James Togba is now a member of the St. Louis Ambush. You got the return. You got players like Robbie Cristo. They have some really good players. So yes, how they rebound is going to be a big thing. Look, at the end of the day, what I see is a group of capable, hungry, scrappy, athletic, and ambitious young men. And what happened was, this is a team that's still trying to find its identity. You can't say that a team is going to go out there 30 days within training camp, that they're going to be assembled and that they're going to be firing on all cylinders. Chihuahua's been together for years. Monterrey's been together for a period of time. We barely have an identity. We have 2 new coaches, a brand new team, so many new faces. So as I posted, and I firmly believe this, as the season matures, you are going to be impressed and entertained by this young crop of players. And look, I miss Frank. I'm going to miss Uzi. I'm going to miss Pacheco, obviously Toth, Topete, like so many of these guys I'm going to miss. And like many of you, we came over to the Empire as fans first. We're absolutely going to miss it. But these young guys, they need your support as well. Just because the players that you grew to love and know are gone, look, that's sports. Players come and go. Us, the fans, we're perpetual. We're gonna be there forever. We're gonna be here today. We're gonna be here tomorrow. So by you all going out there, everybody's entitled to have your opinion. But these young kids see this. See the messages that you post on In the Box, Off the Wall, and in the Seventh Man Chat. They need your support just as badly as Nestor and Frank and Uzi and everybody did last season. So support our boys. They represent us. They represent the Empire Strikers. They represent the IE. So we hope to see many of you on December 15th.
Oh, that was exactly what I wanted to talk about, was December 15th. That's the moment that I'm hoping this all kind of culminates toward. I can't wait to get back in Toyota Arena, get the fans, smell those hot dogs and pretzels, get our suit on, get up in our booth back in our spot where I feel like then to me, the season will really feel like it's underway. For some reason, like starting off in Mexico and all this, it still feels preseason to me. Like it doesn't feel like the real season has started yet. Maybe this game versus the Shrubs, it'll start to settle in, but I really don't think until we're there with the seventh man in the stands at Toyota Arena, hearing the roar of the crowd and the lights and all that, it's going to take that to settle in for me. And I can't wait till we get that moment. I hope everybody's there. I hope it's a packed house, and I hope they're ready to just have fun and support the IE and support the Empire and support the Strikers and, the new coaches and new players. Yes, it's probably going to take them some time to get it going. Right. And the whole vision of exactly what this rebuild has been might not come to scope for another couple months, but I'm excited to see where it's going.
Yeah, I think it was perfect that we had those games out in Mexico that are really going to humble and probably kind of, I don't know, give them something to really look at and kind of develop their gameplay around. And then coming into St. Louis, a little bit more of an environment that they can really fine tune their passing skills, their teamwork skills. I think that's all going to come together. And like you said, I think we're going to all be ready for that home game on December 15th. I think we're going to see a team that hopefully is a little more confident in themselves, a little more teamwork oriented, and they've had a lot of time to really get to know one another as a player. And I'm really excited. But of course, before that, like we keep talking about the St. Louis game, that's going to be on the 9th of November. That's coming November, right?
December.
I mean,
I put it in my notes. I know. I'm like, wow, I'm going back in time. No, December 9th at 4:05 Pacific Standard Time. You guys can catch the Strikers versus the Ambush in St. Louis. It's going to be a fantastic game. I'm excited for it. I think that's going to be a much more evenly matched game. I think we're really going to get a sense of who our team is at that point. And yeah, I think that's really going to set it up for what we're going to witness on December 15th, our first home game. I cannot wait. It feels like forever since we have been in Toyota Arena calling a game. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. I think we've really said it all. Do you guys have any final thoughts that you want to say or put out there? I mean, of course he does.
Yeah. Doc, what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
That was the past couple of seasons, folks. And don't forget that we started 0-4 last year with the team that we did as well, and that we closed out the end of the seasons in rough fashion. Not to say that that's not going to happen this time around, but again, changes had to be made, and I'm just as gutted as many of you. But the name of this episode is Rebuilding the Empire, and rebuild it we shall. But this is a team and a community effort. It's not just what happens in the front office. It's not what managing partner Jeff Burham does. It's not just what Jimmy and Oliver do. It's not just what Panda, the doctor, and I rap about. It's what all of you bring to the table. So support our boys, support our team, our community. More importantly, support indoor soccer. Tell your friends about it. Bring them to games. It's a lot of fun. And let's help grow this team, build them up, build this empire, grow this sport, put it on the plateau that it needs to be on, and then we're all riding happy into the sunsets.
Fill the stands, and it'll fill your heart. That's all I'm saying.
Bums and seats.
Bums and seats.
That's right. Shorzy said it best. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, we could talk offline about that. But either way, I don't have anything else left to say. I think we've covered it all. I'm looking forward to this next matchup that's going to happen on Saturday. It's going to be a fun one out in St. Louis. Shout out to Lux St. Louis. We were chatting earlier about this. We're excited about this. And I don't know, there may be some content between me and her that may start to pop out league wide. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
All female MESL podcast. I'm in.
I don't know. We'll see. I guess we're gonna gauge that content, but either way, you have what just happened here. And do you guys have anything else you want to say?
I'm excited by this collaboration. I don't know if you put that much femme power together, you guys could take over the world. Who knows?
We may be trying to take over the world slowly.
Which one's Pinky then? Never mind. Anyway.
She's probably the brain. She's very good at this content creation thing. I'm just here to execute ideas. So I don't know.
You just got to give us a good narf.
Narf.
What we gonna do now, brain?
Try and take over the world. All right.
The last thing I'll say is that, folks, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is where we're going to aim to give you this live pod. Obviously, if you can't catch it live, it'll be out there on iTunes, on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever it is. Make sure you subscribe, like, tell your friends, tell your folks. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, another episode of Striking Fury with Philly, the Doctor, and Panda.